All right, yesterday, would you rather have been Caleb Williams going forward or Sam Darnold? They kind of look like the same person. No, people are hard on Sam Darnold from last night. I don't know, man. His teammates didn't help him out a ton either.
It's because we've seen too much of the other Sam Darnold. So anytime something bad happens, we're afraid it's coming back, I think.
You think last night was more about Detroit or Minnesota?
It's about Detroit for sure. Yeah, they played on defense. They played great, and their head coach the defensive coordinator is probably going to get some interviews here in the next couple of weeks. Today is the day when most of the coaches who are going to get fired. Gerard Mayer already did, and then you're going to see a few others.
Doug Peterson out.
Right. Aaron Glenn will probably get one of those jobs. There's only 32 of them, so they're in high demand, and I'm guessing the Detroit offensive and defensive coordinators will get.
See, I think Ben Johnson. I said this before, and I know Cynthia and I kind of went round and around Freeland, and she disagreed with me a couple months ago. I think Ben Johnson stays.
He might. Depends on the quality of the jobs that are out there, and the situations that present themselves. That's probably what the breaking line is. Like who wants to stay and what are the jobs that are available. The Bears will be available, obviously, and the Patriots are available, and the Jaguars are available, and I don't know, there'll be a couple more today. I'm not even sure. Maybe the Giants. Again, there's only 32 of them, so the idea that you're going to get a perfect job, there's not very many of those. One day Andy Reid will retire, and he'll probably decide who gets to succeed him. So, it should be. You should not necessarily be able to get a great job as a head coach right away. You have to fall into those a little bit. So we'll see what happens though. But yeah, Detroit's the slight favorite, probably going into the playoffs to win the Super Bowl, but not by much. I think Kansas City and Buffalo and Baltimore are right there. And then, the Philadelphia Eagles are probably right there as well.
Sam, are you surprised at all kind of with what we're talking about head coaching job situations that, there's, I don't know if they're even rumors, just speculation about guys like Mike Tomlin, people maybe making a play for him based on how Pittsburgh's season ended, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, some of those guys that are reasonably well regarded, and a guy like Tomlin especially in a really good position in terms of ownership, front office, that whole thing. Like, are you surprised that there's even seeming consideration for that when you look at not to pour salt on, but a franchise like the Bears that has largely not been effectual in the front office and in ownership? Like, do you think people appreciate how good a good ownership situation can be for them?
I think that, if you're talking about Mike Tomlin taking a different job within the NFL, one of the things that I think is sort of a tough spot for Tomlin is that his teams are always so good that they really have a hard time drafting an elite quarterback. And so, they have not been able to get that player. And, Baltimore got that player in Lamar Jackson, I think at 27 or 28 or 32 or wherever they drafted him. But usually you have to draft within the top 15, and the Steelers don't usually do that. And so I think what you've seen from them is they have all the other pieces, but they don't have. They had to trade for Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson, Damon, I'm sure you were watching the game on Saturday night or caught up with it if you didn't.
Unfortunately.
And, Russell Wilson makes a bizarre, scrambles and, wastes time and slides when he shouldn't have. And, so I think one of the challenges when you're in that position, and Vrabel was in this position with the Titans too, is you just never really bottom out. And so what happens is you don't really ever get an opportunity to get Jaden Daniels. He never falls to you. And so Tomlin either has to trade for that player, and of course trades are always really tricky. And they probably could have went and got Kirk Cousins last year, but look at Cousins. He's already been benched. So, I could see why he might want to go somewhere else and have a chance at a young quarterback. I don't know if Caleb Williams is the guy that he'd want to work with, but there's always that. There's always that possibility that an accomplished coach would want to go somewhere where he knew he was going to work with somebody who was 22 and the best days of his quarterbacking were ahead of him. And that's not true of Russell Wilson. And I've watched enough of Justin Fields to know that that's also not true of Justin Fields. God bless him. He's a great athlete and a hard worker, but if he were the answer in Pittsburgh, he'd be playing now, and he is not.
I'm not going anywhere without draft capital or a quarterback.
Right.
I mean,
or a young quarterback. Yeah, young one.
I don't know. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd take functional at this point because the only reason I'm not like all in on that is, I mean, I'd take Stafford every day that ends in Y. I'd take Baker Mayfield yesterday, right? So I think age is kind of relative to how a guy's playing. I mean, shoot, Darnold's only 27, and there's going to be consternation over whether to lock him up long term or not. You know what I mean? So I think it's more about kind of their operation within what they're doing, because they're hard pressed to find anybody but playing better than Mayfield over the last half of the season. You know what I mean? And he's not exactly a spring chicken.
Right. So if you wanted to go get a job, you could in theory go to the Giants, and you know that you're going to get either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. And
I don't think there's a first round quarterback, though. Do you, Sam? They'll draft him, but like, I mean, I haven't graded like as a draft professional. I don't know if there'd be a first round grade.
I think Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are considered. I would take both of those football players over Drake May.
Not a snowball's chance in heck, Sam.
I would.
No way.
Yeah.
Drake May would be the odds. McCarthy would be slotted higher than Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward this year, I bet. Are you serious?
Well, again, yes, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I mean, I can understand people thinking Shedeur Sanders is well, he does this or he does that. I mean, I've watched a lot of Cam Ward and I've watched a lot of Drake May, and I think Cam Ward's a solid player. I think Drake May is a great athlete. The comp, I suppose, is Justin Herbert. I don't know if he's ever going to become Justin Herbert. He could easily become some other really big athlete that doesn't pan out. Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Ward is can go win you playoff games, and Sanders is probably a polarizing player, but I think he's pretty good. Now, not everybody agrees with that. Certainly, that's certainly understandable. Some people will be like, "Yeah, we're not going to take him," but I would be one of the people that would say, "You take him." With this caveat, with Shedeur, when you go to the NFL, you are going to run more than you did in college because he is a better runner than he ran in college. Like, I think Sanders is a good runner and just didn't run much because that's not what he wanted to do.
That might be one of those things too, where it's like, man, if I get hurt, we're screwed. And he may not think like that in the future.
Right. He's a pretty talented scrambler and runner, and who is not a runner in college, but became a pretty good one in the pros. Like Danny, whatever his last name is, Dimes with the Giants. He was a better runner than people realize. I'm not saying that, that Sanders is that good or whatever, but yeah, like I would say Drake May was the one last year, and J.J. McCarthy, your mileage varies on him dependent on whether you think he's going to translate all those skills to the pros because he didn't throw that much in college, but I think Jim Harbaugh does a pretty good job of developing players. So, I think J.J. McCarthy is a good player.
Maybe
I would. Yeah, I wouldn't have.
Maybe Stroud a little bit is more elusive, I think, in the pocket than coming out. Yeah. Because he showed flashes. Really good, remember that last game against Georgia? It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
This guy can run, really? Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, I would say. Cam Ward's a high volume player. He doesn't really get hurt. He's thrown a lot of passes. Big guy, doesn't, seems pretty durable. I don't think he's Ben Roethlisberger per se, but he's got a lot. I mean, I think he's good. So if you want a Cam Ward and you were a Mike Tomlin and said, I want to go work with that guy, then you know which job you got to take, and probably the Giants. Or, I don't know. Cam Ward could go first overall. I'm hoping, the Bears have an offer. The Bears and the Browns are my two teams because I'm married to a Browns fan. I hope one of them gets Travis Hunter, but we'll see what happens.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. Sam, switching gears to Nebraska here. Obviously, had some news over the weekend with Ed Foley moving on or being moved on, or one of those things as special teams coach. Where do you think Nebraska looks to replace him? I know people always have names they throw out there, but do you have an idea of what you'd like to see there?
Yeah, you know what? I instead of going with names, because I think there's a lot of people that put the same two names out there, and that's fine. What I'll say is that I think you have to think about the head coach. What does he want the special teams philosophy to be? And then once you do that, you have to have the vision, and then you have to have the approach that matches that. And so Nebraska, from Matt Rhule's perspective, I think wants to be a very aggressive special teams unit that makes a lot of plays, and that's fine. I think that's great, and you're going to have to put the commensurate amount of planning and approach and teaching around that and really emphasize it. And the head coach has to be part of that emphasis. Not that he wasn't before, but, I think they probably will fix some of the issues that they had with a different snapper. And that snapper was going to play here, whether Ed Foley was the coordinator or not. So that may resolve some of the things that they have to do. And I think more of the concern is on the return unit and whether they can become a more consistent team returning the football, especially on punts. And that's an area where I think Nebraska can grow. There's a lot of different guys you could hire. Obviously, there's been two names that have put out there that have coached at Nebraska before. And again, that's fine if that's the direction that Rhule wants to go in. I think it's more a question of, Rhule's overall vision for that unit and what he wants to execute there. I don't know that Scott Frost necessarily had a complete and cohesive vision about that, or at least he never expressed that to us. And his predecessor, Mike Riley, kind of left it up to, his guys to do it. The last coach that really had sort of that vision was Bo Pelini in his last year, when he's like, well, I'm just going to take over this, this, and this. And those units got better as a result. So I'll be curious to see if Matt Rhule, divvies it up, coach to coach, or if he has an oversight guy that handles the whole thing. I know this. I know they want to get a little bit better punting the football, irrespective of the blocks. I know they want to get better returning the ball. And I think they've got their field goal kicker in John Hull. They feel like he's gonna go ahead and turn the corner as a kicker and be their guy. So we'll see where it goes.
What's going to be interesting is I think his staff is set up where freelance is not the word I'm looking for, but Coach Rhule can roam and put his fingerprints on whatever part he really wants to, I think, for the first time because of his staff's makeup, right? If he wants to spend some time on D-line, he can. If he wants to learn more about the secondary, he can. If he wants to get after, special teams in the block unit, he can, because he has really high-level thinkers and confidants now on both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it's a strong staff from an experience standpoint, and it really does come down to, again, Matt Rhule's going to have a wide spectrum of just a wide group of people from which to pick a special teams coordinator. He is not going to be limited to 4 names. I'm sure he would have 100 options. So he can pick the person who best fits, his style, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a name. It doesn't have to be a tie to here. It can be a lot of different kinds of situations. So,
well, the guy that I wanted him to hire just got the head job at South Dakota State, so that came and went in a hurry.
Right. And congratulations to him. That's a heck of a job, man.
He didn't even have a chance to get any mail. I mean, between a Vandal and a Lobo and now a Rabbit. He did say, though, Sam, he would get me an apartment in Sioux Falls and I could drive back and forth halfway. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that is Sioux Falls is a fine city, and no, it is. It's really nice. So enjoy Brookings, and they're going to have a great team next year, even though their quarterback is leaving for somewhere. I don't know, Iowa or somewhere, but
yeah,
they'll be right in the mix.
I told him, like, the minute he might have just been pulling up, and I said the number one thing you got to do, and I don't even think he was aware of it quite yet, just because he was. I mean, you're getting ready to, you're negotiating, right? You had 24 hours, but I'm like, you got to find a way to keep Bryce Hawthorne. Right? It's a D lineman that I wanted Nebraska to go get that just committed to Iowa. I said that first and foremost, that's the guy you got to keep in the fold. But it's going to be amazing how many of those guys are going to be on the move. We'll see some guys tonight with Montana State and North Dakota State that will be highly, highly coveted post the game tonight that I think is going to be really interesting because that game will be played at a high level.
It will, and I love that it's on a Monday night.
Me too. It's their own night.
Everybody to see. And you're right. There's going to be a lot of college coaches watching that game and scouting, basically. And it'll be, Montana State's like a 3-point favorite, and I think they might pull out that game. They're very good, and so. But they've been a fine team. And some of these FCS teams, including South Dakota State, they have facilities and training tables and things that
are legit.
Exceed a lot of Group of 5 programs, and might even exceed a couple of power conference programs. I couldn't speak intelligently to every power conference team, but South Dakota State's got a great setup and it's a good job. That's why guys who go there are able to go to other places and get head coaching jobs because they learn how to coach at a really high level at South Dakota State. And then now Dan Jackson going back there, he could go on a 5-year run and we could very easily see him somewhere in the FBS. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's how that goes because South Dakota State's just a high level operation.
Yeah. There's a lot of Jackson Williams and Sharma. Well, I guess we call him Marty, but I mean, that's a lot of good players. And if you read some of the reports to what you said about kind of amenities and what some of these schools have to offer. Do you believe, you don't probably have any reason to not, but like the shoestring budget and bowl game budget and stuff that like Colorado was on versus like BYU. And it's just amazing how we make a lot of assumptions, man, but like money's money at some of these places and it's hard to overcome.
Very much so. I think there's a lot of schools that don't, especially the ones that have to travel more than they ever have before. I mean, Colorado's travel budget probably went down when they moved back to the Big 12. But, you look at a school like Cal, and Cal's an incredible institution for 100 different reasons that aren't related to athletics. But, I mean, California's athletic department, and I'm sure, is taking a massive travel hit. And so, those schools are losing money on the travel front. It's not like they got some big windfall to join the ACC. So it's those things are a little bit tough. Actually, hindsight being 2020, I wonder if Cal and Stanford are really like. I think they're happy to be affiliated with the ACC related to the academics. I just think it's going to cost them a lot of money to be affiliated with schools that are academically on the same level for the sake of athletics. That's going to be tough for those two institutions. Because when Stanford, which is one of the great athletic departments in some of the Olympic sports, has to go to a conference championship, they're not going to go to San Francisco for swimming. They're going to go to God only knows where the ACC championships are. So it's just going to be a different experience. And I think a lot of these power schools are going through that. Whereas, a South Dakota State, which should stay in FCS and probably will, is probably very content to, travel to Brookings. Well, they're in Brookings. Travel to Vermilion and Cedar Falls, Fargo, some of the other schools in the Missouri Valley and clean up and do really well. And at the same time, not have to spend $1 million to do it.
Sam, let me ask you something with basketball and Coach Hoiberg and obviously the fantastic staff, the job the staff's doing. The next four with, Iowa and Purdue and Rutgers and Maryland. Are you to the point now where you're thinking, okay, they've got to go blank and blank in this stretch, or like 2-2 out of the next four, or are you still? It's early enough where you're like, man, just get Iowa. Like, where are you with an expectation level for basketball, given they kind of have shown who I think they're going to be?
I think it's a variable answer, and then tell me what your expectation is, and I'll tell you what I think of what they need to do. If I think the Nebraska basketball fan expectation is NCAA tournament berth and maybe a win in the tournament, and everything else is gravy. And so if you're telling me that, then, wins over Iowa and Rutgers keep you on the same path. Heck, a win over Rutgers keeps you on the same path. I don't think a loss at Iowa is going to hurt you too much. But if you're hungry for more, and you're hungry for, okay, yeah, it's a team whose sum is greater than its parts, but why not Nebraska? Why can't they make a run at being, top 5 in the league or top 3 in the league, like last year? Then you want to see them win at Iowa, battle at Purdue. That's a hard place to win. Beat Rutgers and go win at Maryland in front of 9,000 fans, because that's about how many fans Maryland has at its team. So, you want to see them make a run, and they have an opportunity. None of these teams are great, and only one of them has a great home court advantage. So Nebraska has every opportunity to continue to make a push for being one of the top teams in the league. After you beat UCLA, you can claim that you're one of the top teams in the league for sure.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. Take care.